Red Bull has said that Perez will keep his seat for 2024, but it looks like they're still thinking about other choices for later on, especially when the Mexican driver's contract ends in 2025. While many people were hoping for Ricciardo or maybe even Lawson, most of the F1 experts have told Red Bull to try to get the quiet star who is currently stuck driving a slow car and hasn't been able to fight for wins since 2021. With how Audi likes other drivers better, and with where Alfa Romeo is performing right now, there a real chance we're going to see Bottas in Red Bull after Marco's latest words? It's clear that we've entered a time where Red Bull dominates everything, and we don't know when it's going to end. After all the warnings from Pat Simmons about the 2026 rule changes not mixing up the grid as much as we'd hoped for, this doesn't mean that a boring time is coming. Especially with how the current driver situation is happening at Red Bull, there seems to be a calm moment before a big storm, and that storm could be caused by no other driver than Valtteri Bottas. The Finnish driver has accepted that he would never be able to really fight for championships at Mercedes, even though he won 10 races and got 20 pole positions with the team from Brackley. And that's exactly the role he might be looking to come back to again, but at Mercedes' biggest rival, Red Bull. Verstappen has won 17 out of the 20 races this season, and to believe that something big will change in the next couple of months is really too hopeful. But to believe that Perez won't be able to hold on to second place in the Drivers' Championship, especially with how McLaren has gotten faster, is definitely something that could happen in the 2024 season. This will open up the road for any driver who would be more than happy to see themselves racing alongside Verstappen, and in this case, it might as well be Bottas. While this idea sounds a bit crazy since he was driving for the team that Verstappen fought really hard against in 2021, times change, and Alfa Romeo is certainly not looking like the promising team that Bottas believed it was when he joined them in 2022. More often than not, the team struggles with car problems and their car is just nowhere near the middle of the pack, as they've been passed by AlphaTauri now and are next to last in the team championship. Say all you want about Bottas, but he does have winning experience, and if you compare him with Ricciardo, you would get a better result. Although all of his wins came during a time when the sport was mostly dominated by his team from 2017 to 2021, which wasn't that hard to do, according to Peter Windsor, this is a move that should definitely be thought about by Red Bull. And although he defended the Mexican driver despite his bad form at first, Peter now feels like there is much more to get from the Austrian team after the results that Verstappen has shown in 2023. The difference from first place to second place is bigger than the one from second place to the last driver on the grid, and that's very likely to be how the entire season ends as well. So with how Perez has kept the entire season so close for second place in the Drivers' Championship, there is no doubt that Red Bull would want this problem fixed as soon as possible, as 2024 might not be that easy of a walk if we judge from all the upgrades that have been done by their rivals this season. Talking about this matter even more, Windsor went on to say maybe Perez. Now, you could say after getting beaten by Alonso and Aston Martin around Brazil, maybe the time has come to think about getting somebody who's a bit more able to adapt and a bit more of a racer in all conditions than Sergio Perez. Probably not faster because you don't want a George Russell in there. You don't want an Oscar Piastri in there stirring things up. And so who else would I put in that second seat? Valtteri Bottas would be another guy who I think would do a good job in that second Red Bull. He's the sort of guy that Red Bull would hire actually because he's got good experience. He's a bit quieter than Perez. He's not by any means in the same class as Max or Lewis or Charles, but he's not bad. Better than Perez, I think. If you're going to look at anybody, Bottas would be the guy. Furthermore, Peter went on to say that Audi's future is definitely not with Bottas because the German newcomer is looking to sign another top driver like Sainz or Norris or potentially a championship presence in Alonso. So having Bottas in the same situation he is right now beyond 2026 is kind of hard to imagine. So far, the statement from Red Bull is loud and clear. 2024 is the year of Perez. And we're not saying that something would change here if the veteran does a good job. But in case he doesn't, there are absolutely no signs about his replacement, and it seems like this is something that Red Bull would do if they feel that their total dominance in both championships is under a huge threat. Christian Horner and Helmut Marko were both clear that second place in the Drivers' Championship is extremely important with the current dominant car that Red Bull has in their hands. And quite frankly, the only reason why it's this close is because apart from Perez, the rest of the grid has been extremely up and down in the first half of the season. But once McLaren understood what needed to be done on their car, and Mercedes found some performance from their Austin floor upgrades, the risk that was directly put on Perez's second seat got bigger. Now, when everything is supposed to start from zero in 2024, Perez might have a very difficult time trying to keep up with Verstappen and the pack ahead. So be that as it may, the replacement is not that far away if you take all things into consideration. Plus, Red Bull is very sure that the upcoming season is not going to be one in which they're going to dominate the grid with ease. Something that Horner talked about earlier this month when discussing this matter. He went on to say, "It's always difficult to read too much into those things. I think that there are a lot of world championships that are won in the wind tunnel based on numbers at this time of the year. I think that we've got a great car. We got a great basis. If we keep improving it, of course, the returns are going to get smaller because you're hitting the top of the curve. You can see it will squeeze together, it will become closer, and that will stretch us more for sure. The question is whether Bottas would like to jump into this career opportunity if it ever comes down to him, because from what is currently seen, Red Bull is not likely to choose another alpha male driver in this era. And as Helmut Marko said, the team has given up on looking for the next Verstappen, because that's simply impossible. What he did say though is that the Austrian team will be looking for yet another race winner, which is exactly Bottas, who has never failed to be the number 2 guy behind Hamilton when the 7-time world champion wasn't at his best during the race weekend. Red Bull's fall is coming sometime in the future, and while most of the sports fans hope it will be sooner rather than later because it would provide a lot more competition up front, there is no guarantee when we're going to see this actually happening. Nonetheless, the team wants to protect itself with another strong driver in the number 2 seat, one that will not challenge Verstappen for the wins, but will always be there to finish second and will always make sure that the team gets the most points on the racing weekend. Unlike Bottas, Sergio has turned out to be quite the problem in the 2023 season, especially because there's always something wrong with his qualifying sessions, missing out on 5 straight Q3 appearances after the Miami embarrassment and making the podium only once in Austria in this 5-race span. And that's very unlikely to happen if you have a driver of Bottas's skill sitting next to Verstappen. With this in mind, do you think that Red Bull will go down this road? And if so, how do you think everything will play out for all sides involved? Let us know in the comments down below.